Welcome to the October edition of the Library Show. I'm not wearing makeup, I'm not wearing orange and black, but it is the October edition and it is Halloween time. For those of you who like to celebrate Halloween, I think the Lower Merion Library System gives lots of opportunities, both for little kids, that is the 4 to 8-year-olds, and for adults. We're going to start our show today with a series of adult programs offered at a few of our libraries. I have to admit that when I looked over all the programming offered in October, I was really blown away by these things. Let me start with Evan Wilson, who at the moment is at Penn Wynne Library, but he also covers Belmont Hills. Evan, what struck me about you is that you are doing reading to adults. Wow, how cool is that? What have you read and what are you planning to read?
Well, thus far I've read two. Well, I've actually read 3 books, but I've done two for video. I did War and Peace last summer, and then into the spring I did Les Miserables, which should be ending up. I'm not sure if the last video is there. I've finished, but I'm not sure if it's been put up. And what I'm trying to do is break it up into sort of manageable chunks and just tell people what the story is and how I feel about it, what I think about the author, how I think, interesting things are happening in the books, or sometimes dull things. For instance, in Les Miserables, there are 30 pages about the sewers of Paris, which you have to read, but which are not exactly great intrinsic to the plot. So I feel like this is a sort of a carryover of a book group I used to be in when I was in Massachusetts that covered the classics, and I feel like this is sort of a good way to give back to people and also to, see if I can get people interested in reading the classics, because I've enjoyed them. I've read the classics for years now, and I feel like they bring a lot of sort of positiveness to what our life is right now. And this is sort of a way to give back for that.
That's marvelous. I think that the nice thing about the township is that you have a huge range of people with different interests. And there are people out there who do like classics, who do like, pardon me, books by dead authors. that's a category. It's a legitimate category. You said you had an idea about a book club. Maybe you can share that with the audience.
Well, yes. I mean, when I was up in Massachusetts, we had a book group that was called a classics book group. And it's funny that you mentioned the dead authors, because that was the only criteria we could come up with to describe a classic. The author had to be dead. Other than that, we had long discussions and we could never come up with what was a classic. So I figured the best way to do it is just to say who's a dead author. And I feel like I want to start another group up here. The one that's up in Massachusetts is still going. It started in 1993 and it's still going right now. They still contact me, but I can only sort of participate occasionally with that. But I'd like to do something similar here. But I have to, we have to see if there's an audience for it. And right now, of course, we have the problem with where are we going to meet, because COVID is making it hard to meet, meet in any of the libraries. So this is sort of a long-term plan to see if there's interest in doing a classics book group someplace in Lower Merion. We can pick a place. And the other thing is we can decide how to do it. I don't have a format for how I want it done. I'd like to get a bunch of people together and then see how they'd like to do a book group.
Well, it seems to me you might be able to do it via Zoom, just like we're doing this interview.
It's possible. That's what actually the book group up in Massachusetts is doing right now. And it has its advantages and disadvantages, because that particular book group is full of a lot of people who like to talk. And so people talk over each other, and then you get that sort of Zoom lockup where you got people trying to, all talk at the same time, and the computer doesn't know what to do with it.
You need the kind of timer that gives everybody 3 minutes, and then somebody pushes a button, and then that's it.
Yeah,
it feels hostile, but nonetheless, it's effective.
Well, it is effective. But as I said, I sort of want to try to create the I'm in the place book group, because I feel like those work better, where, you can get sort of great interchanges between people going, and where they're having a conversation back and forth. So you're not saying, well, you have 4 minutes and you have 4 minutes. It goes back and forth, and then someone jumps in. It's, as I said, it's hard to do. So this is sort of more of a long-term plan. In the short term, I'd like to actually do another of the sort of book blogs I've been doing. So
are you looking for suggestions of books to read?
Absolutely. This is actually, I haven't quite figured out where to go next. I'm thinking there's a certain sort of type of book you have to do, because between War and Peace and Les Mis, I actually read The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. And that's a fabulous book. It's a wonderful book. It is not a book you can really talk about in front of a camera to people, because not a lot actually happens in it. A lot of it is going on inside the character's head. And there's only so much you can do with that. So I'd love to take suggestions for what the next book I will book blog, but it has to be a book with at least some semblance of plot. But it can't just be, well, it can't be all plot, because we found this out in my book group. We actually did The Man in the Iron Mask of Dumas, which is a very long book, but it's all plot. There's nothing else to talk about. So you need a good book that's kind of all those things. So if anyone actually wants to offer a suggestion, they're welcome to actually email me at my email address here at Lower Merion, which is ewilson, WILLSON, at lmls.org. I'm happy to take suggestions. I'm thinking of starting up in either November or December, depending on how things go.
Okay, so people can send you suggestions by email to your address. But the other question is, when are these readings going to be taking place, just so people can mark their calendars accordingly?
Okay, well, what I tend to do is try to do it weekly, so that there'll be a thing. We post it on the Belmont Hills Facebook page. It gets previewed and then it gets posted, usually on Sunday. This particular summer we had a gap in between and we missed a Sunday, but it's once a week. It's about a 20-minute post in which I just describe where I've gotten in the book. I try to do the books in 150, 200-page chunks and then discuss that and then move on to the next part. These, of course, have been long books. The shorter the book is, I might shorten up, either how much I say or speed it up. I will describe what'll happen when I choose the book. I'll tell people on the first one how it's going to be presented.
Okay. And because it's Zoom, there's no limit on the number of people who can participate, correct?
Well, it's not really actually a Zoom thing. This is actually just me blogging the books. If we do a actual book group, then there won't be a limit on how many people we can do, but that's sort of farther in the future.
Okay, so do people have to register to be part of this blog?
Nope. You can just log in onto the web page. It'll be there. It'll be posted. And although it's not live, there's plenty of space to put comments in beneath it as you're listening to it if you want.
Okay, sounds good.
So.
Thank you very much, Evan. I think the idea of a classical book club is a great idea. I mean, there are lots of dead authors out there, so you have lots of choices. Evan, thank you very much. Best of luck with the classical book club.
Thank you.
Dead authors to choose from. Take care. Stay tuned.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back with The Library Show. Welcome back to The Library Show for October. As I looked over the things that will be happening at the libraries this month, I was very struck by Ludington Library's assortment of possibilities. And although there are always programs for kids, the adult programs are really superlative. Andrew Pelberg, reference librarian at Ludington, is with us today. Andrew is one of my very favorite people because, frankly, he has such creative ideas for the libraries. So if you're a patron at Ludington, if you're a patron of other libraries, go. Andrew, the first program that I wanted to talk about is a program about Salem. Salem is famous to all of us for the witch trials. Many of us, including this former English teacher, think about Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible. And my understanding is you're going to have a very interesting presentation by people who are coming from Salem. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Sure. This program is actually titled The Salem Witch Trials and Public Memory. The description is interesting. It's Salem witch trials were relatively mild when compared with the devastating witch trials that ravaged Europe during the early modern era. Salem has become one of the most infamous witch hunts in Western European history. Today, Salem, Massachusetts has become a complex and unique example of public memory. And essentially, this program will take history and how it's affected the town of Salem. It is presented by the Salem Witch Museum, who will be joining us on October 13th.
Okay, and the people who are going to be talking about this, is it going to be one or two speakers? Is it going to be a panel? How will that work out?
I believe it'll be one or two presenters from the museum who will be hosting the presentation.
Okay, I noticed in this, it says signups are limited.
Yes.
And that is because?
Due to cost, essentially,
Wow.
cost and space. They gave us a criteria, and unfortunately, we are limited.
So is this an in-person event or is this a Zoom event?
This is a Zoom event. All of our programming is virtual, sadly, until hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that happens. So this is a Zoom event. When do people have to sign up by?
Registration open today.
Oh, okay.
So yes, it should close about a week before the event on the 13th.
Okay, so roughly October 7th, people need to.
Yes.
Is there any cost to this program or is it?
Nope. All of our programming is free to our community.
Okay, terrific. And I don't see, oh, it's 7 p.m. It's an evening program. So
yes,
people who are working can participate in this. It says grades 9 to 12 and adults.
Yes.
So this is really kind of
so it
in adult direction.
Yes, I mean, it's definitely open to 9 to 12th graders, right, but it's definitely some of the subject and themes are of the adult nature.
Wow. I feel as if I were an English teacher at Lower Marion High School at this point, I would assign this as something for my kids to watch and then write an essay about it to pick out something that, seriously.
Yes, absolutely.
What happens to former English teachers? I always think of what kids could be writing all the time, but they could write about this because this is really an interesting topic. It has political implications. It has implications for the country. It's really historical implications and so on. And then of course, there are people who are interested in witchcraft just for the sake of witchcraft. I don't know how big a Wicca community there is in the Philadelphia area, but somewhere, somehow. Speaking about witchcraft and taking a large jump over to what you have told me is called adult horror, I was very struck by the fact that you have not one, not two, not three, but 4 authors coming this month. And all of these authors write in a genre which, frankly, I didn't realize existed, called adult horror. Can you tell the audience a little bit about this and then mention the names of the 4 authors who will be coming, please? Sure.
Well, it's generally just horror that are shelved in the adult fiction section. The 4 authors we have are Chapman, Cassandra Poa, Chuck Wendig, and Grady Hendrix. All the authors have a background in graphic novels, video games, and just general fiction.
Okay. And if I were looking for the books by these authors, it would be in the regular fiction section.
Correct.
Okay. And even if I were a younger person, a person in high school, I would be looking for them. I like the comment here on Grady Hendrix. He says he'll discuss his new book. He writes fiction also called Lies. Is that his sense of humor that's coming out here in that? Is that?
Yes, he has a very dark sense of humor and very, very straight-faced. He's good. He's done my best friend's exorcism. He's going to be discussing his new book, The Final Girl Support Group, which rumor has it HBO picked up for a new miniseries.
Wow. Good for him in terms of the economics. That's always a big coup for an author to get on television. And I've never heard of Cassandra Poa. She's an award-winning game writer. What does that mean?
She has written video games and is making the jump to horror fiction.
Oh my, okay. And Chuck Wendig, author of Star Wars Aftermath.
Yes, Chuck Wendig is big in, he writes Star Wars fiction, and I believe, a bunch of works with Marvel, and he's done his new book, Book of Accidents, is his horror book.
Huh.
So he will be discussing that, which has come out earlier last month.
Okay, so the bottom line is he's already in several media. He's in books, he's in comics, and if he's doing Star Wars, then maybe some of his stuff might eventually make it to movie theaters. Maybe. I'm sure he would hope so, but
I'm sure it's in the realm of possibility. He's also a big blog writer
okay, so
or bloggist.
well, you could say blogger. I
Okay.
never know how many people these folks have tuning into them on their blogs, because some people have in the millions. And the other one is Kayla Chapman, who
Yes.
wrote, I haven't heard of any of his books, but it says some of these are the middle grade series.
Yes.
So
So he fluctuates between young adult fiction and adult fiction. He also has worked with Boom Studios, which is a graphic novel publishing. And he's his most recent book, Whisper Down the Lane.
Okay, wow.
And all of these programs are virtual, free to the public, and taking place on Zoom.
And people can sign up through the Luddington website?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate your being on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you, as always. Stay tuned. We'll be back for the wrap up on the October episode of The Library Show. Welcome back to the October episode of The Library Show. We've spent a good bit of time talking about adult events this month, but really October celebrates Halloween, and that's kind of a kids' holiday, but not necessarily these days. We have wonderful programs for kids. We're lucky enough to have Hilary Jones, who is a library assistant at the Ardmore Library in charge of children's programs. They have some doozies coming up this month. Hilary, could you tell us a little bit about the STEAM program? I have to tell you, I've heard of STEM, but I don't know what STEAM is, much less pumpkin STEAM.
Yeah, so this is a pumpkin STEAM play. And well, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And the A part really is just adding in the arts. So, it's just making it a little bit more holistic as it already is, because the point of doing STEM or STEAM is that you're combining a bunch of modalities into one, because most of the time when we're doing things, we're not just doing math or we're not just doing art. So that's the point of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So you have left brain here and a little bit of right brain also. Okay.
So I kind of set up a way to tell you about the Pumpkin STEAM program. It's going to be set up into 4 stations where they'll be divided into groups and they'll rotate through. Everyone will get a baby pumpkin and a baby pumpkin birth certificate, where they get to name their baby pumpkin and weigh it and measure it. So there's adding in some math and science. And then they will get to decorate it using geometric designs and lines. And if they want to add a little
face,
jack-o'-lantern face. So that will be one station. Another station is the water station, where the children will ask themselves, can a pumpkin float? So they can take their pumpkin or another pumpkin that's hollowed out. They can try either one and place it in the water. Well, first they'll have to predict, and then place it in the water and then see what will happen. And then they can also play a little bit in the water, because that's something fun. Another station is, pumpkin volcanoes. So again, there will be a hollowed out pumpkin. There'll be the baking soda and some color, and then they'll squirt in the vinegar. And so they'll get to see the reaction. So I forgot to say, with the water, we'll be talking a little bit about density. And then with the pumpkin volcanoes, we'll talk a little bit about chemical reactions. And then the last station is using these pumpkin candies, by the company Brax or whatever it is. And you take a toothpick. This might be for slightly older kids, but it definitely needs to be supervised. and you begin to build a structure using the candy pumpkin, and they can end up building something like this.
Very cute.
Yeah.
I love that there are 4 stations and each one has a slightly different focus, but they're all kind of science and yet a little bit of the art, which is marvelous. What age kids is this aimed for?
I think that I wrote 5 to 10, age 5 to 10, something along those lines. I feel like for the younger ones, they can still get something out of it and just get exposure. And for the older kids, it might be reinforcing, just getting to do it again, or, you know.
I could see the older kids in this kind of setting helping the younger kids do what they're doing. So there's another element, another layer that you're adding on to this.
Yeah, sometimes that happens with some of my other programs. I've had that.
I like that because when you have that kind of a range, I think that's inevitable that you have some 10-year-olds who tend to be nurturing and see little kids and they'll help out. And that's a positive thing. Not necessarily if they're related. If they're siblings, they might not want to help out. But that's another story. Do people have to register for this?
Yes, most of the programs I do, registration is required because I provide a certain amount of materials per person. It's usually 15. And yeah.
Okay, and is registration open for this? People open till a certain date?
Well, usually registration is open up until the time that I do the program. It has been that they've been posted online about a month in advance. It is good to sign up early though and keep checking online because right now the pumpkin program is full. There is a wait list. You can put yourself on the wait list. There are people who end up canceling. I get in touch with the families ahead of time, and waitlisted people can end up getting called.
So I'm just going to emphasize that, and that is that if you've signed up early and your child is on the list and you can't do it, please have the courtesy to let you know so that somebody else could take your child's place. That's really important. Don't take it for granted that, oh, it won't matter if I don't show up, but please to let you know. I understand you also are doing a musical event this month.
Yeah, actually, this month it actually changed over to being once a week. Over the winter and the spring, it was once a month. Now it's going back to once a week, which was what it was 2 years ago. And I play a little ukulele. We sing some songs. The kids, it's hands-on. They have rhythm sticks and egg shakers and scarves. And families are welcome to bring their own materials. I also clean the materials after.
Good.
So it reminds me, for any programming that we are doing, it is outdoors. It's staying that way for the foreseeable future. And we request that you wear masks.
Okay, so both the parents or the caretakers who bring the children and the children should all be wearing masks.
As long as they're not too young.
Well, if we're starting with 4 or 5-year-olds, they're old enough to be able to wear masks, I think. I mean, a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, but you're not dealing with that.
Well, sometimes a parent will bring their baby in the stroller or something like that.
All right. So we've talked about science, we've talked about art, we've talked about music, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the story time that Miss Donita does with the kids. And I have to say that some years ago when my grandchildren were younger, I brought them to story time and just sitting on the lawn in front of the library and having a story read. And I think there was another woman who was reading then, and there was juice to drink. There were animal crackers to eat. There were several books about the zoo, and the kids got such joy out of it. I'm assuming that in October there will be a Halloween theme to the books. Is that a reasonable expectation?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
Also, I did want to mention that Miss Donita does her program outside, her Storytime program, but she also does it on Zoom at the same time, so that if anyone cannot attend or feels a little uncomfortable, they can join by Zoom, which I think is great.
So if you have young children at home and you would like to have them get used to going to the library and have great programs put on by Hilary or put on by Miss Donita, please go to Ardmore Library, go to Ardmore Library online, and keep in mind that even if a program is filled, there are wait lists. So that's a good thing. Thank you, Hilary, very much. I appreciate your being on.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I also want to tell everybody, please mark your calendars. Next month is November, and we are having one book, One Lower Merion. It was in abeyance last year, but this year's book is You Bet Your Life by Dr. Paul Offit. Paul Offit is a very well-known virologist in the area. He is on various federal committees, knows more about vaccines and COVID and all of that than you can imagine. And he's written quite a number of books. He is also the very first author to come back for One Book, One Lower Merion. And he's coming back because what he has to talk about is so relevant today. That will be a Zoom talk on Sunday, November 14th at 2 p.m. More information will be on the LMLS website as it gets closer. Hope to see you there. Thanks for tuning in to The Library Show. Bye-bye.